My pronouns are trad, wife, in the future, anti-feminist, sandwich, maker. Okay, but are you sure you really want people to refer to you as sandwich? Hi, and welcome to, or back to my channel. I'm Kit, your friendly feminist cat lady spinster, and today we're going to talk about, well, it's been a bit since I've posted a proper video, and it's been even longer since I've posted about tradgram. So welcome to this grab bag of random posts I found. But before we dive in, I just want to clarify two things. First, being Christian, or religious in general, does not make you a fundy. In my opinion, a fundy is someone who has a strict interpretation of the Bible and also believes, whether or not they admit it out loud, that everyone should follow their beliefs. Second, being a housewife or a stay-at-home mother does not make you trad. Flavors of trad are varied, but simply marrying and having kids does not mean you buy into all the trappings of trad life, which, beyond the obvious marriage and kids, also tends to include a belief that, whether because of biology or the Bible, women should stay home, feminism is bad, and the only way to be fulfilled and happy as a woman is to submit to a man. Red pill beliefs may or may not be included, but there is a tendency toward white supremacy. And you know what? I'm tired of being nice. I'm tired of giving the benefit of every doubt. If I see something, I'm going to say something. And if I'm wrong, great. Publicly state that you disavow white supremacy and that you're horrified people would ever think you'd condone it. All right, let's get into it. So this first post is courtesy of Haley, who runs the Kindled podcast. And what is her podcast about, you ask? Well, Kindled podcast exists to speak truth and grace boldly to cultural, theological, and political issues from a biblical worldview. Speaking the truth in love with boldness, we will grow to become the mature body of Christ. Perhaps she saves the love for her podcast. My takeaway from her Instagram, however, was anger. And she comes off as a poor man's Ally Beth Stuckey. Editing Kit jumping in to add, let's look at some of her posts. I just love these. I also love how they're so non-specific, but that is for a purpose. This way, whoever is reading can insert whatever they don't like about the current day and feel justified that someone understands, which of course leads them to following Haley and falling down that rabbit hole. But let's go through these. We got women's rights, but lost women's roles. What women's roles were lost when women gained rights? What did women do in 1950 that women can't do now? Why does being an autonomous being and not the property of father or husband bother her? This reminds me of those European aesthetic accounts that post things like, remember what they took from you. Haley wants us to feel upset that women are no longer venerated for being wives or mothers, and that that's no longer the default option for women. Never mind the fact that women have never actually been venerated for marriage or childbearing. It was what was expected. But the right-wing machine does love its culture war. We got sexual autonomy, but lost the purpose of sex. I'm going to hazard a guess that Haley's response to the question of what is the purpose of sex would be procreation. So please explain to me how sexual autonomy means people can no longer procreate. If she wants to have sex only for the purpose of reproduction, great. But someone else having sex for different purposes has nothing to do with her. And if her response would be to feel close to your spouse, the same reasoning applies. Someone making different choices from you does not belittle or diminish your choices. We got sexual liberation, but lost sexual intimacy. The great thing about liberation means that you are liberated. You don't have to follow the customs laid out by society. This means you can be polyamorous, go to orgies, get into BDSM, have one-night stands, or never have sex or save sex for marriage. It's very telling how these folks try to twist sexual freedom into everyone must have sex now, outside of marriage, and then go have an abortion. Yes, there are people who will try to pressure you into sex when you don't want to, or who will tease you for being a virgin. Those people have always existed, and just because someone disagrees with your choice, no matter what it is, does not mean you are wrong to make it And just because you don't want to have sex doesn't mean you're not liberated. Liberation goes both ways, and there is nothing liberating about having sex that you don't want. We got women's empowerment, but lost godly manhood and masculinity. Is she really trying to say that men were only godly and manly when they were in authority over women? Or that women having rights somehow took something away from men? We got freedom of expression and speech by acquiescing to the exploitation of women in pornography, but lost the protection of the sacred. This is just so delightfully vague. Given the phrasing, I'm guessing the sacred is naked women, and though there are definitely exploitation issues in porn, a woman being naked isn't automatically exploitative, nor is it inherently pornographic. We got reproductive rights, but lost the fruit of reproduction. Well, depending on what state you live in, you might not have reproductive rights. But I would assume the fruit of reproduction is children, and people are obviously still having kids. However, they are doing so at a later age than in the past and having fewer children, so this is a nod to the folks worried about birth rates. Air quotes, because the people who worry about birth rates are either consummate capitalists who view everything through a lens of how it affects the economy, or white supremacists who worry about white people no longer being the majority. And sometimes both. We got abortion as healthcare, but lost the ability to care for the health of the most vulnerable. So this could have gone two ways. The elderly, or infants. However, given the typical pro-birth rhetoric, I believe she's talking about fetuses. No one is campaigning to stop prenatal care. In fact, those evil leftists believe healthcare is a human right and that a lack of money shouldn't stop you from getting the healthcare you need. Yes, healthcare costs money, but Haley is a Christian. And the United States has the worst maternal and infant mortality rate in the Western world. So her concern shouldn't be stopping abortion. It should be ensuring that women who want to be pregnant have all the resources needed for a safe, healthy pregnancy and delivery, which would lead to better outcomes for both mother and newborn. I know she's trying to peddle the notion that abortion isn't healthcare, which, does she not consider childbirth a medical event? You can suffer lifelong health effects. You can die. We got equality with men, but lost the definition of a woman. Really. Because I have a hunch that Haley wouldn't hesitate to define a woman. And just because I would define a woman differently from Haley doesn't take anything away from either of us. Thank you, feminists. You're welcome. Now we're going to revisit Masculine Revival. I did a video on him for the 12 Days of TradWives last year, and his account grew massively between then and now. Interestingly, he seems to post less these days, but I suspect he's spending more time on his men's groups, which is how he makes money. And as he got married this year and is now expecting, he could probably use more income. Nonetheless, he still found time to post some bangers. Can a relationship ever work if the woman earns more?
Yes, it can, but it is harder, and that man will need to place more of an emphasis on bringing the energy of a provider in ways that have nothing to do with money. Personally, I prefer a woman who wants to get behind me and help me be able to support both of us 10 out of 10 times.
Obviously, relationship arrangements are up to the individuals in that relationship. But why is it so important that a man brings, well, first, more money than the woman, and second, if that's out of his control, brings the provider energy? What is provider energy anyway? What if the man doesn't want to be the provider? And on that note, he would rather his wife quit her job, and in this scenario, she has the higher paying job, to help him support them both? Wouldn't that still also make her a provider? But as a general rule, if you enjoy your job, it's not wrong to keep it, even if you're making more money than your husband. What if I don't want children as a woman? Does that affect my feminine energy?
In the minds of many men, yes. One of the unique gifts of the feminine is the possibility for the man to create something beyond himself through her.
To create something beyond himself through her. Women are not vessels for a man's legacy. My girlfriend is partly buying into feminist ideology. Should I dump her or reverse her belief?
Masculine men are the cure to feminism. If she is open-minded, you could absolutely change her mind. Tons of women that follow me were feminists before they met their husbands. Often, women have no clue that embracing their femininity as a lifestyle is even an option until they meet a man that shows them the way.
I love this. It's merely a question of breaking up, or being the masculine man that shows her femininity is a lifestyle. Because women are stupid and easily led. The enemy is both strong, feminism rules the world, we live in a gynocracy, and weak. Feminists just need a man to show them the true way to happiness, and all their silly beliefs about equality will be forgotten. Do you feel different about your masculine role since being married?
I feel better about it now than I did prior to getting married. I find the burden of responsibility and leadership inspiring. It's funny to me how feminists act like men have it so easy in a traditional relationship. What they don't realize is how much is riding on the man's shoulders. He carries the weight of the family. In many ways, the success and failure of the family rests on him. It is an amazing path to walk, don't get me wrong, but the idea that the man just throws it into coast while the woman slaves away is wrong.
And who put that burden on him? He did that himself. And he found it so inspiring to have that responsibility that he created an Instagram page to convince other men and women to live like him. Responsibility is fine. It's good, actually. What feminists object to here is the idea that, well, for one, women are incapable of leading themselves and they must be led with the children, and two, that gender roles are how everyone will find happiness and fulfillment. The fact that these traditional gender roles aren't actually traditional and they fell apart after a decade is proof enough that, no, they're not the path to fulfillment. And more to the point, everyone has to decide for themselves what fulfills them. There is no blueprint, there is no shortcut. And I've spoken out several times on my channel about how it's wrong to expect a man to be stoic and wrong to expect him to provide all the money. However, as the one with the income, he does have the power in the relationship, and that is no accident. What are your thoughts on promiscuous women?
Creates damage that will have to be addressed later. Women with promiscuous pasts can vouch for this.
As a woman with a promiscuous past, I want to chime in on this one. If you're having sex to fulfill something you feel is lacking in your life or to gain validation, yes, there is something that needs to be addressed. But sex does not cause damage. It's what led to the sex in the first place, whatever that might be. But if you were sleeping with people you liked because you wanted to, then no, that doesn't create damage. However, being shamed afterward can definitely lead to feelings of guilt and shame and wondering if you are damaged. Well played. What women think men want in women: financial stability, confidence, successful, high-earning career, ambitious, challenging, strong, independent. What men actually want in women: fit body, kindness, supportive, hardworking, agreeable, peaceful, sweet, interdependent. I found this one kind of funny because it assumes that women are just sitting around wondering what men would find attractive. And so they go out and get careers to become attractive to men, because that's basically what all the points on the what women think men want boil down to. And I found the what men actually want amusing because men are not a monolith. Everyone values different things in a partner. And in this incredibly small world, we have MR reposting Patriarchal Femininity saying big facts to her claim that stay-at-home dads are inferior to stay-at-home moms. To which I ask, why? And finally,
Tell me I'm wrong. Man as the breadwinner, protector, and leader, and woman as the stay-at-home wife, mother, and homemaker is the best relationship model in existence. Honoring physical and emotional differences between men and women isn't sexist. It is common sense and a recipe for a functional, thriving relationship.
you are wrong. There are men who want to stay home. There are women who want careers. There are people who don't want to get married. There are people who don't want kids. There is a lot of variety in this world, far more than what I just mentioned, and that model won't work for everyone. And it wasn't even the model throughout history. It was sold as a way to get women back home after World War II, and the advertising worked so well that even 70 years later, people still think it was the norm. Not to mention that even during those times, women, especially women of color, were still working. But that wasn't in the advertisements, so I guess they overlooked that when waxing poetic about the good old days when everyone knew their place. This is an incredibly shallow way of looking at the world. And you know what? I can understand it. I can understand that having to figure out your own way and how you're going to live and what you're going to do can be scary, and how rigid rules about how to conduct your life can be appealing. But don't put that on everyone else. You didn't discover something new, you were just trying to drag us back to the past, which didn't work in the first place. Anyway, Issa Ryan, aka Biblical Wife, chimed in because TradGram really is a small world.
It's absolutely true. I was the breadwinner for a time, and while it absolutely made the most sense for our family, it really taught me that we are simply not wired to take on this role. It drives me.
Did she mean drains me?
It overwhelms women, or did me at least, lol. I'm very content bustling and nurturing and managing the home, much less so plugging away at something that has nothing to do with my husband and children. My husband, on the other hand, sits around thinking about how to provide for and protect his family by default. So putting this energy into a daily job that enables him to do this keeps him in his element.
It's great that Issa found a relationship style that works for her, but just because she didn't like being the breadwinner doesn't mean that goes for all women. And I imagine it also depends on the job. I hated cashiering, but that doesn't mean I was overwhelmed by employment. Shades of Rebecca Barrett, assuming that because she wasn't suited for something, that is true for all women, and so we should just not do it. This way of thinking truly baffles me. It's like they never learned as children that other people are different from them. While we're visiting ghosts of TradGram past, I thought it would be fun to look in on Patriarchal Femininity, but alas, she has deleted her social media. That's okay though, there is just one post of hers that caught my eye. Every woman getting offended and throwing around insults to women preaching about submission, I have a question for you. What happened to choice? What an excellent question. Hey, let's look at some of her husband's posts. yes, PF herself is an immigrant. But to answer the question originally posed, if you want to be a submissive wife, that's your choice, and I'm not going to stand in your way. If you want to tell other women they need to do the same, however, I'm going to push back on that. A few months ago, someone suggested I check out The Pretty Conservative, and wouldn't you know it, she's actually commented on one of my videos. I'll give you a minute to let you guess which one, and then we'll look at her comments. It's crazy how feminists and women who supposedly support women will bash Mrs. Midwest and others like her for being traditional and living their own lives peacefully, but will support women doing slut walks, sex work, in gay relationships, toxic feminism, and male bashing. The irony, lol. I'm saying this based on the comments I'm reading. A stay-at-home wife and mom is toxic and dangerous and being groomed. They're so sad and unhappy, I guess, that they have to bash a stay-at-home mother. So first, feminism is not women supporting women no matter what. That's an incredibly lazy take, though it does indicate this person's level of knowledge about feminism. And second, Mrs. Midwest is not just some innocent doe lost in the woods. She has a YouTube channel and a blog. A blog, by the way, where she recommends known white supremacists and other questionable characters. And third, she is not just vlogging her days as a stay-at-home mother. She is creating her own pipeline into the TradWife life. And if you wonder why that's bad, please return to the intro where I describe how TradWives and housewives are different. And fourth, there was no bashing in my video. There is nothing wrong with being a spouse or a parent, whether you work or stay at home. There is, however, a lot wrong with her content, and if you're curious about what I'm talking about, please visit my Mrs. Midwest Pipeline playlist. Someone else commented, "Wow, a channel that revolves around commenting on someone else's channel. Some people don't have anything to do these days." PC's response was also thinking that free time to gossip about a woman who is living her life with her husband and babies. Kind of sad, honestly, that people need negativity to find meaning in life. Discussing the beliefs and recommendations that someone puts out for public consumption is not gossip. This is kind of funny because most of PC's Instagram posts are rage bait. That being said, I didn't find anything too compelling there, but she is a great example of how conservatism and the red pill can intersect in the TradWife sphere. Still holds true in my experience. Feminists. Marriage is for pick-me girls. I'm happy being forever alone. Meanwhile, traditional girls are apparently having their neck caressed while writing. Who wants to tell her that feminists are not a small group of single women? As I stated, although I love what Italian Prime Minister Meloni is saying, I still don't favor women in these positions as I believe they should be reserved for men and can oftentimes merge into feminism. Thoughts? Note, Parliament runs England, the king, queen are mainly figureheads. When I see posts like this, I'm not surprised. It figures that if you believe women are to be submissive and stay home, you also believe they shouldn't hold any office, especially in government. And you know, I appreciate their honesty, but I always wonder, if their dream came true and they could only do what their father or husband permitted, would they still be so keen on the submissive woman thing? Because I can't shake this feeling that all this is to lay the groundwork so, if something horrible happens and women's rights are rolled back, they can point to this and say, see, even when we had freedom, we knew our place as women, we can be trusted, and thus their lives can continue as normal. I can't be certain, but in case that is correct, the leopards will eat your face. How do you see masculine qualities making yourself and those around you unhappy? Great question. So I've noticed in my life and in the lives of many women who I mentor who are either very feminist and or masculine in their behavior, 99% of them struggle in their relationships with their male partner because there's no balance of the masculine and feminine. Just two masculine people, which doesn't work in a romantic relationship due to lack of polarity. And they also usually have an attached mental health or emotional issue because they feel lost, burned out, and confused from trying to be something they are not or prove a point. Women are taught nowadays that being feminine is a weakness and only being masculine is to be celebrated. It's funny though because many of these women are pro-women's rights and feminists, yet they hate and despise feminine qualities and only celebrate masculine qualities. So it's kind of odd and self-sabotaging. Hope that makes sense. Blessings to you. This is interesting. For one, she appears to be single and in her early 20s. And there's nothing wrong with either of those things, but from the sounds of it, she's mentoring older women in relationships. Also, per her earlier post, she doesn't seem to believe that if you're a feminist, you'll get into relationships, at least not with men, But here she's talking about feminists and their male partners. But anyway, yes, for a long time, qualities considered feminine were not valued. And that's still something that happens today. But it's not feminists that devalue these qualities. It's society. And that is changing, but it's a slow process and trad folk are not helping. I understand that it looks appealing from the outside. They honor women's differences from men. They'll allow you to rest in your femininity, but they don't actually respect women as people. And everyone deserves to be valued for who they are and their unique abilities, not just for how well they conform to gendered stereotypes.
Yeah, traditionally masculine behavior in women does repel some men, particularly the kinds of men who would fall in love with the idea of you than understand your actual unique needs. Lean into this mindset too hard, and you could find yourself married to someone who doesn't know you. I know I'm not going to change your mind about anything, but advertising traditional wifehood as a blanket solution to all of women's ails can be harmful to some women. I'm just advocating for you to leave space for diversity, that's all.
I understand and appreciate your comment, but please remember, women like me choose this just as feminists do. And no one tells feminists to leave space for diversity when they bash traditional feminine women like me. It's funny how the minority point of view is often attacked. So if that's the case, then it's actually conservative, feminine, traditional women like me who are the truly oppressed and not mainstream feminists. The other side barks the loudest and gets the most support and attention, even from men. So believe me, my ideologies are far from harmful compared to the state of women in mainstream society who follow feminism. Any extreme is harmful, so understand that, but actually society needs more ideologies like mine because we are leaning way towards the opposite side. But I appreciate your comment. Take care.
I do enjoy the "we chose this like feminists did." Feminism isn't a lifestyle, and all feminists do life in a different way. And there is no feminist movement to bash traditional women. And for that matter, if these traditional women just lived their lives without trying to sell their lifestyle to others, or in the case of politics, force it on others, no one would care. I do not care if Sally lives on a ranch with her husband and 10 children. I do not care if Sally submits to her husband. I do care if Sally goes on social media and tells women how bad and wrong and misguided they are and how they're destroying society and they'll die alone if they don't live her way. Of course, conservatism does operate on fear, so this is no real surprise. And I would also like to note that it's thanks to feminism that if, for whatever reason, submissive wife life goes wrong, Sally does not have to remain with her husband. And on that note, what ideologies of yours do we need more of? Because I'm looking at these posts and I'm unconvinced. Let me know in the comments. Which post is your favorite? Mine is, feminine women allow their man to mold them to his liking. There's just something so poetic about the notion that a woman can't be feminine without a man's input. Truly inspiring. So after reading all of this, the question that comes to mind is, why? I don't think, as Masculine Revival claims, that providing for a family is easy, but it doesn't escape my notice that the role men have assigned themselves is also the one with the most power. Yes, you have to make money. You are also the head of the family. Your word is law, and the only thing keeping you there is you. A woman in this situation has no money, no outlet. She used to be at home with the children. And then they tell you that, as a woman, that's where you're supposed to be, where you should want to be. And if you want to go out into the world, you're usurping your husband's authority. If you hesitate at giving your life to the keeping of someone else, you're living in fear. If you want anything beyond what they've assigned to you, you're brainwashed by society or falling for feminism's lies. And given that the core of feminism is gender equality, if they believe feminism is a lie, they believe that men and women are not equal, and if they believe that men are to be rulers of women, they believe, in spite of the lip service to the beauty of womanhood, that men are superior to women. These men, of course, are not working alone. Women can be excellent accomplices. Sometimes they even mastermind. But please know that these men do not respect you, even if you completely fulfill their vision of what womanhood should be. You are someone to be ruled, an object to be owned, not a full person with your own thoughts, hopes, and opinions. And apparently trad women are okay with that. But I suspect they do truly believe they're not like other girls, and thus whatever happens to the other girls will not fall on them because they've proven themselves trustworthy, sympathetic to men's plight and the scramble for superiority, and aware of their place as women. But in the end, the leopards never care. They will eat your face no matter how well you've performed your designated role. And that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I would like to thank my patrons, and if you would like to help support the channel, my Patreon is linked below along with everything else. Have a great day, night, whenever you happen to be watching this, and fade to cats. But the right ring, but the what?